They said it would never last. They snickered when he walked down the aisle beside her, the woman they whispered about behind her back. He smiled at her like the sun had risen just for them, his hand warm around hers. She returned it, shy and hopeful, her dress brushing the ground. They didn't know her story, didn't see her heart. All they saw was an overweight black woman in a frilly gown. They laughed and pointed. They said she wasn't pretty, that she was too large, that he deserved better. He heard them and squeezed her hand tighter. The pastor began. The vows were spoken, rings exchanged. Love won. Their honeymoon was simple. They rented a small cottage by the sea. She watched him sprint into the waves, carefree and laughing, his hair plastered to his head. She settled on a towel, her breath catching it. How handsome he was. She didn't worry what the other guests thought. He had chosen her. He whispered to her as the sun dipped below the horizon that she was beautiful, the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. She felt tears sting her eyes. No one had ever called her that. They returned home to the same neighborhood that had mocked her. The mail carrier hesitated when he saw both their names on the mailbox, as if surprised that such a perfect man would share an address with her. They moved into an old farmhouse he inherited from his grandmother. She spent hours in the kitchen, learning to cook his favorite dishes, stirring sauces and tasting as she went, determined to fill their home with warmth and flavor. He came home late some nights, exhausted from work, and found her singing softly at the stove. She greeted him with a plate of steaming food and a smile. He kissed her cheek, murmured a thank you, and collapsed onto the couch, hunger forgotten in the peaceful glow of seeing her. Friends invited him to poker nights, teased him about having become a homebody. He'd stand guard at the front gate, her by his side in the doorway, her arm looped through his. They'd turtle into their home, curtains drawn against the judgmental stairs. Inside, he showed her old photo albums from his grandmother, tales of his childhood and dreams of future travels. She listened, wide-eyed, hanging on every word, weaving herself into his life more deeply each day. At work, he was a rising star, climbing the corporate ladder. He introduced her to colleagues as his wife. Some whispered, but most were polite. In boardrooms, she sat quietly, hands folded in her lap, nodding when he looked her way, proud that she stood beside him. She stopped looking in the mirror, stopped caring about the numbers on a scale or what the world thought. All that mattered was the warmth of his love. 8 months after the wedding, they received the call. The farmhouse had a sinkhole opening beneath the old oak tree, foundations shifting. Insurance declared it unsafe. They needed to find a new place. She worried about money. They had modest savings, but he reassured her. He poured through listings late into the night. She brought him coffee and sat by his side. When he found a modern loft downtown, open and flooded with light, she hesitated. The neighborhood was different, the buildings tall and sleek. He saw her doubt and he squeezed her hand. "We'll build new memories," he said. She smiled, heart fluttering. Moving. Day arrived. They hauled boxes up 4 flights of stairs, sweating and laughing as the elevator sputtered. Neighbors peeked out, curious. One elderly woman asked why he wasted his time on someone like her. He lifted his chin and replied that she was the reason. He woke each morning. She touched his arm, eyes shining. They kept unpacking through the afternoon, stacking books on shelves, hanging a few photos. She placed a picture of them on the beach at sunset by the window. From then on, every morning golden light bathed that photo, reminding them of promises kept. Their anniversary came 15 months after the wedding. He whisked her away for a weekend trip to a mountain cabin. They hiked pine-scented trails, held, hands across crackling fires, whispered dreams beneath star-strewn skies. She leaned against him and listened to his steady breath, savoring how safe she felt. When they returned, he planned a surprise. He invited all the people who had scoffed at them to a celebration at the loft. Invitations arrived with embossed gold lettering and a simple note: "Celebrate love." They hesitated, but curiosity won. One by one they arrived. They paused in the entryway, taking in the sleek interior. Glass walls framed the city skyline. A grand piano stood in the corner. Soft music drifted. They recognized her from the neighborhood gossip. She greeted them with a graceful nod and a radiant smile. They swallowed, eyes flicking to him. He stood beside her, polished and confident, his suit tailored, his smile genuine. As they mingled, he poured drinks. She circulated, chatting easily. They were struck by how poised she was, her laughter ringing clear and bright. Some asked about her work. She told them she managed a foundation that helped single mothers find housing. They looked at her, surprised, at her eloquence and sincerity. He listened proudly as she spoke, his chest swelling with love. Later, he stood on a small platform. He tapped his glass and invited everyone to share memories from their wedding day. Silence fell. Then one man cleared his throat, apologized for his words then, admitted he'd been wrong to judge. A woman stepped forward and said she envied their closeness. Others followed, each confession brimming with regret. They spoke of how they'd laughed at her, mocked her weight, dismissed her as unworthy. She accepted each apology with grace, offering a kind word, never bitterness. He looked at her, tears in his eyes, after they danced. He held her close on the glass floor overlooking the city lights. She pressed her cheek against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. In that moment, they were the only two people in the world. The rest had disappeared. That night, as they climbed into bed, he brushed a strand of hair from her face. She traced the lines around his eyes, thought of how far they'd come. She whispered that she loved him more than ever. He whispered back that he'd marry her again in a heartbeat. They fell asleep in each other's arms, safe and loved. He drifted off, thinking of the journey they'd shared, how she'd transformed his life with strength and kindness. She dreamed of the future they'd build together. Children's laughter echoing through hallways, family dinners filled with joy, sunsets watched hand in hand. By the morning, the harsh voices of the past had faded. Only their love remained, bright and unshakable. Everyone who once laughed now watched with admiration as they opened the door together, stepping into a new day. Their story had silenced the critics, proved that love sees beyond appearances, beyond gossip and judgment. It thrived where doubt once reigned. They remember the first meeting under a flickering streetlight, her silhouette haloed by rain. That moment sparked a bond neither expected but both cherished. Their courtship was woven from everyday wonders, coffee shop conversations, shared lunches, walks through autumn parks. She taught him the names of songbirds. He read sonnets to her under golden leaves. He asked her father's blessing, and her family welcomed him with open arms and wet tears of joy. Her strength was quiet but inexorable. She met every challenge with courage. Their wedding was a garden affair on a crisp morning. Vows whispered in front of friends and family. The whispers of doubt followed them. Too heavy, too plain, too ordinary. But he saw her beauty in the laughter that lit her eyes, in the compassion that guided her hands. He vowed to stand by her in storms and sunshine. She vowed to fill his life with light and love. They lived those promises. The mountain cabin honeymoon showed them simplicity's magic. Daytime hikes through snow-dusted pines, nights curled under blankets by a crackling fire, hearts warmed by each other's presence. They returned to scorned streets and silent phones but found strength in the vows that bound them. Together, they transformed an old farmhouse into a sanctuary of laughter and music. She cooked feasts, he told childhood stories. Their nights were filled with song and dance, their days with work and dreams. Career triumphs came and she stood beside him in boardrooms, her quiet questions revealing insight. When structural damage threatened their home, they moved in with family, bared their fears, and emerged united. A city loft became their canvas, murals of birds and sunrises on brick walls, shelves of books and paints, instruments awaiting song. They built a life where art and love intertwined. 15 months on, he orchestrated the loft celebration, inviting skeptics to witness their truth. She greeted judgment with grace, shining in her confidence and purpose. Her stories of volunteer, work and art classes moved hearts. Their critics confessed one by one remorse for their cruelty. He raised his glass to love that sees beyond skin and shape. They danced above city lights, two souls entwined. At night they lay together, the city hummed below, hearts beating as one. She whispered her gratitude for his unwavering faith. He vowed to love her always in every life they might share. In the soft glow of dawn, they woke to a world changed, not by grand gestures, but by the courage to love authentically. Their story became a beacon for anyone judged too large, too different, too unlikely. They built a family in dreams, children's laughter in sunlit halls, art on every wall, Sunday dinners filled with joy. They founded a community gallery, turned the loft's open space into a place where artists of every shape and color found voice. She mentored young mothers. He funded scholarships. Together they proved that love's power lies not in appearances, but in kindness, devotion, and the willingness